Welcome to Design This, Beyond the Dieline. I'm here with my guests who are two Brooklyn-based female founders of Sackville Co, a design-focused contemporary cannabis accessories brand. Let's bring the founders of Sackville, Lana Van Brunt and Hayley Dineen. Welcome, Lana and Hayley.
Hi, thank you so much for having us.
So you both come into cannabis with experience in luxury product development, experiential marketing, and business development for companies ranging from Vivienne Westwood to VICE. Talk to me about what you thought you could bring into the space.
That is such a big question. I think ultimately, this is going back to 2018. So as quickly as cannabis grows, it was still a bit of a different world in 2018. Vogue wasn't writing about cannabis in 2018, but we ultimately there just was not anything on the market that reflected the way that we consumed and the way that we thought that the future of cannabis really was moving towards. There was a lot of outdated stereotypes and perpetuated by the products that we were using, and the head shop experience and that whole thing was one note, and there wasn't a lot of expression for different aesthetics or elevation of that experience. So that's where we thought, based on, Hayley comes from a product design background, as you mentioned, and in luxury fashion. And then I come from a background in branding and marketing for a lot of media companies that were continue to combination. Yeah, so we just realized we could do it ourselves between the two of us. So we launched started with one product, our signature grinder, and then the rest is history. We just continued to make products, and thank God people like them.
That's amazing. So Hayley, you studied fashion design?
Yeah.
Central St. Martin, which is part of the University of Art, London in the UK.
Yeah, I studied at Central St. Martin's. It's a pretty world-renowned design university.
No big deal.
It's a great place and a terrifying place. But yeah.
Well, talk to me about what things you brought from your studies and experiences, and how did you bring that into what you're doing today?
Yeah, I think one of the really cool things about Central St. Martin's as a design school is that it draws, I'd say, like the most premier talent in the world across design. And so your peers are unbelievably talented and incredible about creating really new ideas around design. One of the things that school is really well known for is that they hate iteration. So if you come to your teacher and you're like, this is what I'm inspired by, and it's another piece of fashion, they would be like, that's disgusting. Don't show me somebody else's work. Like, show me a plant, or show me a building, or show me something that's real inspiration, instead of just copying. And so I think that's definitely part of the way that I approach design, is that we really don't look at what other brands are doing in the cannabis space. We don't take inspiration from that because it's really cool and we're happy that they're doing it, but it's not us. And so the way that we approach design is by looking at what we love in art and fashion and culture and, architecture, and finding those little moments of wonder and how we can reimagine that within a cannabis space. So if you look at our product offering, from our grinders to our crystal ball pipe, which is something we just launched, you're not going to see anything else like that on the market, because we really do design from scratch, from the ground up. And those ideas are coming from, our lived experience.
That's beautiful. And that's what's beautiful about design in general, because it is so visual. It's like, it's in your face. So it does naturally promote some competition between designers. But then, the inspiration comes from everywhere.
Everywhere and anywhere, honestly. It's like sometimes you watch a movie and then you're like, oh, wouldn't this be cool? I remember, I think before we came out with our crystal ball pipe, I called Lana and I was like, I had a dream about like a magic crystal ball, and it's like a smoking thing. And she was like, okay. And then it ended up being this really cool piece. So yeah, inspiration can really come from anywhere.
Lana, what's your perspective? Because you worked as a director for both VICE and Intentional Media Groups. So like when you get into conversations with Hayley and she comes to you with these dreams of hers, like what's your perspective?
Yeah, I think that, ultimately the process for Sackville, because it's just the two of us, is incredibly collaborative, and my background is also in spaces that weren't yet, like I started at Vice pretty young and they weren't yet taken on by mainstream. It was something that you were kind of creating this counterculture while being at the precipice of zeitgeist and moving a different conversation forward. And I think that's something that, as we're thinking through design and as there's like, some wild ass idea that pops into our heads, or it's like, back and forth, like just sending constant inspiration and these never ending dialogues of like, what about this? And what about this? Like the things that we're talking through, so many of them never see the light of day because we concept them and they don't work or what have you, but we're very, very dedicated to, not like Hayley's saying, like from my perspective in branding and media and marketing through to product design, from Hayley's side, we don't iterate. We don't care to be copying what's existing in the world right now. And that kind of goes across anything, like when you're thinking of tone of voice for a brand, or the way that the brand is visually represented, or how we're interacting with our audience. Like we try very hard to be really authentic to the voice that we've created. And sometimes that does mean you're watching someone else do something that you're like, damn, that's so cool. But then it just inspires you to continue to dig deep and like find your own creativity and inspiration so that you can create something equally as cool that has its own, kind of place in the world that doesn't exist elsewhere.
Yeah. As I'm listening to the two of you go back and forth, you really do balance each other really well. Like it's no surprise that you've been incredible together. Like that's really cool.
We joke about that sometimes because there's really not, I think that's such a beautiful part of a partnership, and everyone should try and be so lucky because there's no real crossover. Like all of our strong suits are really complementary to each other, and all of our weaknesses are complementary to each other. So we are like endlessly supportive of the creative pursuit individually as well. So like, as Hayley's talking about, if she needs to spin her wheels for a while on an idea, like, and vice versa, I've pulled out some like really, we've invested in things that are like, I think this is it. This is like this is what's going to move the needle. And you kind of just share that joy of creating. So we really let each other play within the space, and then the other person kind of picks up where they left off.
Yeah, and I think that fun really comes across in the brand. Like when you look at Sackville, it's really a representation of what we think, what we love, what we're inspired by. And you can really see that through the brand, that it really isn't a copycat of anyone else, because it really does come from, our minds.
I was going to ask, where's the name come from?
It's funny. It was back. So when we first started the brand, like Lana was saying, it was back in 2018. And at the time there was all the new kind of consumer brands that were coming out in the cannabis space really leaned heavily on this like canna or green or something that really nodded towards cannabis. And we really wanted to differentiate and not have that automatic association, especially for women and non-binary people who are generally left out of the conversation around cannabis. We didn't want people to feel uncomfortable getting a box from our brand or something like that, or feel like they couldn't just have a attachment to it. So we wanted to take a word or a name that didn't have any association, and it was kind of like a fresh slate for people to put their own thoughts to. And so that's how we came up with Sackville. It was just a word that we both really liked. And then the "and co" part of it was the idea of the collaboration within cannabis. So we really see cannabis as like a catalyst for creativity. And we've always loved working with different designers and people in music and fashion and art. And so it was really about creating a community that loves cannabis, loves creativity, and, wants to do cool stuff together.
Yeah, you have had some incredible collaborations with GZA from the Wu-Tang Clan, April Martin, Rafa Wakeman, aka Ralph. So talk to me about some of the collaborations and what you expect from some of your collaborations.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. I was just gonna say, for us, it's like we really want to hit home that we are about the celebration of creativity and how that connects with cannabis. And so we love working with different musicians, artists. Our first collaboration was with Jizza, which was amazing for the brand. And yeah, we really just want to be able to give a spotlight to people who we think are doing really amazing, cool things in their industries as well.
Lana, you were going to say something?
I was going to say it's the same. It has the same energy as Hayley and I, designing or coming up with something for the brand. It's really collaborative and really creative. And it's something that I feel lucky to be able to do because it has its own energy and inspires different tracks for the brand and stuff like that. So with Wu-Tang, we were able to take a body of work and translate it into something physical, which, they've done a ton of merchandise and apparel. And it was a really unique opportunity with a brand that has so much stuff out already, to find something completely new and create their body of work and translate that into products that have never existed before. So it's always a really fun experience, which I think is like, there's very business heavy stuff when you're running your own companies. And then there's these moments where it's just completely inspiring and creative. And that's kind of what, I think the reason we got into all of this. So I'm sure a lot of the collabs too, like some of the designers we've worked with, like incredible illustrators and, painters and different things like that. Like Mia Lee is a stunning painter who does these beautiful prints and silk scarves. And it's just something that becomes very, very fun. And it's we really, really look forward to the process of that.
What's been your favorite product so far that you've been able to develop?
Oh my God, it depends on the day.
Yeah.
I swear, I think it depends on the day. I'm endlessly forever will be obsessed with the gilded grinder. We use it every single day. The way it feels in your hand, the way it grinds, everything about it sitting on your coffee table will always be a staple piece. And then there's just fun stuff. Sometimes, we're lucky enough to have all of the pieces. So depending on what room of the house we're in, you might be rolling on the neon pop pink rolling stand, or you move your way to your bedroom and you have completely different set of products in it. So we're really lucky that way. I don't know, Hayley, what do you think?
I don't know. I would say honestly, the gilded grinder is such a huge thing, because no one had really redeveloped what a grinder looked like. And it felt really exciting to come to market and be like, no, a grinder shouldn't have to look like this tiny little cylinder. It can be a design object. It can be cool. It can be something that looks beautiful on your shelf when it's not in use. So it felt really exciting to bring that to market. And then I'd say our carry case is so the utility is just so perfect, because anytime I'm out, I love being able to carry a joint and it be smell proof and airtight and look cute on my bag. It's your joint isn't getting crushed in the bottom of your purse or something. So that one I love too. And then I love our pipe too, because it's just very, very cool and it's beautiful.
So, I love some of what I'm hearing about just challenging the way that things are, right? And that's a beautiful opportunity that you've had with starting your own business and collaborating together and supporting each other, is really having that platform to be able to challenge things, ask why things are the way they are. Maybe we can invent something new and a better way of doing things. I think that's beautiful.
Totally. I feel that's such an important ethos behind the brand, is when Lana and I really started looking at the cannabis industry, we both felt so unseen in the industry. There's no representation of products or of campaigns or anything that really looked like us or made us feel like we were part of the industry. And so it was fun, and it still is fun to really step back and be like, it doesn't have to look like that. It doesn't have to be like that. We can have different conversations. We can bring different things to the table. And so that's been really fun in building the brand.
That's beautiful. And you've been working together for some years now. So how do you feel about the impact that you've had? Do you feel like there's always more work to be done, right? But how do you feel about how far you've come so far? And tell me a little bit more about where you think you're going.
It's like, as we were saying, it started off from this really organic space of nobody is designing this. And ultimately we just want beautiful products ourselves. And that's kind of like where it came from. And we really quickly realized the impact that we could have and were having on forwarding the conversation and destigmatizing cannabis. So it's become something that is just like rooted in who we are, is moving forward that conversation away from really solidified stereotypes that were built from the war on drugs and really have no place in even historic consumption to modern day consumption. And it's a shame that those experiences have colored generations, like that mindset of like what a stoner is or what cannabis can lead to, or these things that were just really advertising campaigns for the war on drugs. So it's something that we take very seriously. And, ultimately design in general is, we believe, kind of the only thing that really moves forward that conversation and allows people to feel more comfortable in creating consumption rituals for themselves, or even starting to feel comfortable going to the websites that'll teach them more information, or figuring out how to, talk to a bud tender and that kind of stuff, because you have to see yourself in the experience. And if you're a high functioning, successful, modern consumer, and there was nobody expressing that anywhere in media or in any products, then of course you're not going to participate in the industry because you don't think anyone like you is. So it's something that has completely shifted the way that we think about the company, starting from really just that organic roots and moving into something that we feel really, really passionate about, moving the conversation forward.
Mm-hmm. And what about your next steps? Like, what's the impact that you intend to have even in like the next year or so?
Long term, I'd say global takeover.
Take over the world.
But we're doing a lot in different spaces. We have a really exciting campaign coming out at the end of September that really focuses on celebrating New York consumption, because as different states start to legalize, it's this real opportunity to kind of like pull back the veil and celebrate consumption in that space. And for us, the brand is born and bred in New York, and so we feel really passionate about showcasing how great it is and how different it is from California, which is really kind of set the tone of what cannabis looks like in the US. So that's really exciting for us. And then we have a lot of other like cool collaborations that'll come out in the next year, which will be really fun. So stay tuned. And yeah, the brand is always growing. We're always working on new products. We're always working on new ways to really work with our audience and make sure that they feel heard and excited, and they're getting what they want out of the cannabis space.
Yeah, you're right. There's a lot of excitement coming out of New York for cannabis. I mean, California's been leading the way for so long for our country. So it's like it's time for New York to join the smoke sesh,
Yes.
And you already see it, I think it, like Hayley was saying, it just has a completely different vibe. Like no one's gonna deny that California and New York have very different energies to them. And I think that's embodied in the brands as well. Like we don't push a wellness narrative. We believe that cannabis has been a part of culture and creativity for a very long time. And we're not, really trying to reinvent that conversation, but just showcase the opportunities that it has with it. And I think that New York is like, we're excited to see what happens in New York and the brands that pop up and who's going to be like, how that voice is going to be expressed, because it's just going to be completely different. And as New York's the dominant global voice a lot of times for trends and music and all these different things. I think it's going to be like the next few years coming are just going to be wild to see what comes out of that city.
Yeah, no, I'm excited too. And it's really interesting to watch how, cannabis brings people together. Like it's always been a thing. So now that it's becoming such a powerful industry and more states and cities are joining into that collaboration, like it's bringing businesses together and the collaborations together. Like we talk about your collaborations with artists. Like there's so much opportunity with this, like cannabis as a product that, like it's just beautiful seeing how it's continuing to work as it always has.
Yeah.
Cannabis totally. It hasn't changed. It hasn't changed for nobody. It's just,
I'm really excited to see, especially in New York, once things kind of get into full swing, how cannabis starts integrating in those ways to like, experiential things like going to see a concert or going to see live music or going to see an art show, and like the ways that we can start integrating cannabis into some of those like more physical experiences, I think is going to be really cool.
That's dope.
Yeah. And sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think all that, like with, like Hayley saying, in that experiential realm of living is the change of alcohol consumption too, and just a consumer that's a lot more conscious of some of the effects of alcohol. And it's going to be really interesting to see like how a city based on nightlife and that alcohol consumption is going to transition or incorporate cannabis into all those experiences.
Yeah, because who wants to be hungover the next day?
No one. My hangovers are getting bad too. I swear I can have like 2 glasses of wine will do to my brain now.
So tell me, you created Sackville Studios, which is a multidisciplinary cannabis design and production studio. And you've worked on projects with Playboy, Cresco Labs, Curaleaf. Can you take us inside some of those projects that you worked on so far?
Yes. Yeah. So Sackville Studios was started in 2020, and it really came about really organically, where we were getting so many people were reaching out to us asking us to do private label design work for them. And we hadn't really considered doing that before, but in 2020, we thought we would try with Playboy, and that's kind of how Studios launched. So with Playboy, we created their first cannabis accessories line, as well as a bunch of people for gifting. Yeah, it was really, really great and really exciting for them to really take a step into the cannabis space. They were releasing some CBD and THC goods. And so we got to create this whole experience that went along with their products. And that really ranged from like apparel to really nice stash cases to a nice ashtray. So it really set the tone for what the consumption experience would look like, which was really fun for us. And then we kept getting more clients after that, and it has been a great experience of really doing that, finding ways that we can help those brands connect with their audience through touch points that they feel more comfortable in. So for a lot of cannabis consumers, cannabis is illegal. Cannabis is very new. They don't know how to judge a brand or how to choose a product just by walking into a dispensary. And ancillary goods or accessories really give a more holistic, full story of what that brand represents, whether that's through, a beautiful rolling tray or a beautiful candle or a room spray or things like that help them set the tone of what the experience will be like. And so with all of those different brands, we've really worked with them to hone in on what that voice is so that their consumer feels really connected to the product.
That's beautiful. So for anyone listening or for people that want to collaborate with you, what's the best way to follow you or get in touch with you or keep up with your work?
We have Instagram, which Sackville brand, the Sackville brand is at sackville.and.co. And then our studios projects are at Sackville Studios or Sackville.studios, sorry. And you can check us out online. So our website is www.sackville.co. And our studio's website is www.sackvillestudios.co.
Beautiful. I'll definitely be following because you two are blowing me away with some of the stuff that you've been collaborating on so far. So I'm excited to see what you do next.
Thank you.
For sure. On the studio side, like what's the goal?
I think, ultimately it's been something that we're really excited about how well it's been embraced. And I think, like Hayley was saying, there's a shift in general culture outside of cannabis as well, to make sure that we are creating products that have purpose and utility and sustainability, instead of creating things that are, impacting the earth negatively and creating a lot of problems for our ability to sustain the planet. And I think because of that, we feel a responsibility to not only work with brands to really connect with their audience, but to also show that design is not separate from quality. And you can have products that are, even if you're giving something away, it should be meaningful, design forward, and sustainable, and leave the world in a better place than we found it. So that's something I think it also has a bigger mission to it, where we really want all brands to be considerate of what they're producing and make sure that they impact a consumer. And that's where design comes in, and that's where utility comes in, is that every single thing you do, every detail is important and should be considered, because customers don't want to buy things that aren't going to stand the test of time and don't meet the needs that they bought it for. And while at the same time making sure that, we're using processes that are effective for a lot of different ways, like the world and the companies and margins and all of that. Like none of those, I think we were taught that there was one or the other, like you had to have a low cost product to meet your margins, or you had to spend a lot of money to create something that was really beautiful and had, long lasting function and utility. But Sackville Studios is here to merge the two, because it's just a fallacy that they don't exist in one product. So we are really excited to be able to work with more brands and help shift that whole mindset and bring the world onto a new stage of understanding how product can be used.
Wow. Well, thank you, Lana and Hayley. Thank you so much for joining us and bringing so much conscious design into the cannabis space. Like, that's really, really incredible. And I'm excited for everything you do next. And for
thank you so much. It's great talking to you.
Yes, thanks for having us.
New York City. So you can download episodes of Design This Beyond the Dieline. Look for all of our episodes by going to cannabisradio.com or subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Amazon, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Till next time, always think beyond the Dieline.
The opinions expressed on this CannabisRadio.com program are those of the guests and hosts and do not necessarily reflect those of the staff and management of CannabisRadio.com. Any rebroadcast, republication, or retransmission of this program without proper consent is prohibited.